I beg to move that this House do now adjourn.
The question is that this House do now adjourn, and I call Mr Tamerjit Singh Dhesi.
Thank you very much, Mr Deputy Speaker, and I'm extremely grateful to your good self, Mr Speaker, and the House authorities for granting me today's adjournment debate on the Western Rail link to Heathrow. Soon after being elected in 2017 by the good people of Slough to represent them in Parliament, realising the immense importance of this rail link, I set out establishing, with like-minded colleagues from across the chamber, an all-party parliamentary group for it, which we finally did in 2018. Therefore, the House will be aware that I have long championed the Western Rail Link to Heathrow scheme, which would link Great Western Rail's network and constituents in the Thames Valley region and beyond to the rest of the world via Heathrow Airport. This, Mr Deputy Speaker, is not just a Thames Valley or even a South East England project. It is a levelling up project that will benefit local, regional and national economic growth. I'd like to place on record my gratitude to the Western Rail Link to Heathrow Stakeholder Steering Group, Heathrow Airport, the Thames Valley Chamber of Commerce, GWR, Slough Borough Council, Network Rail, BA, TfL, DFT, SEGRO, Atkins, and others for all of their hard work and for their expertise and invaluable advice to our APPG over several years. Indeed, as eloquently explained by the Thames Valley Chamber of Commerce, the proposed 4-mile rail link to London Heathrow Airport will connect 20% of the UK population to within one interchange of our nation's main hub airport. This strategic development, Mr Deputy Speaker, would facilitate more direct access for travellers, allowing constituents to travel direct to Heathrow, eliminating the need to travel first to London Paddington and then back out again. Importantly, yes, I will give way to my older friend.
Thank my honourable friend for giving way, and hopefully you would appreciate that. Congratulate him first on the work that he's done on this for a number of years now. And would he appreciate that the project which he talks about would have benefit far beyond Slough and that area of England, but also to the west and to Wales in particular, because there are many constituents of mine that have done that journey into Paddington and then back out to Westminster. I wish him well with the project, and hopefully the interest from the government as well will be forthcoming.
I thank my honourable friend, and he has eloquently put on record how the Welsh Government themselves have been in strong support, and I know that he is a strong champion for his constituents, and he has been doing that work on a plethora of issues, but in particular within our all-party parliamentary group. And so that is why it is important, because those benefits, Mr Deputy Speaker, importantly, greater connectivity to Heathrow will bolster jobs, growth, trade, tourism, education and regeneration. Yes, I will give way to my honourable friend.
I've been a member since 2018 of this APPG, and really also recognise that it benefits everybody from Bath and beyond to have that important rail link. And it has very many environmental benefits as well, so people will actually do the public transport option rather than travelling by car, which a lot of what my constituents do.
I thank my honourable friend, the member for Bath, not just for her support, not just for her membership of the APPG, but also for her alliteration. As she said, from Bath and beyond. This project will be of huge significance and importance. And I also want to outline, Mr Deputy Speaker, the cross-party composition of our all-party parliamentary group, whether it is indeed members of the Liberal Democrat Party or the Conservative Party or Labour Party and others, where we actually realise the collective benefits to our constituents, but also the environmental benefits, which I will elaborate upon very, very shortly. Yes, I will give way.
I'm extremely grateful to him, and I congratulate him on securing this debate. Yeah. He makes the absolutely essential point here that this isn't just a South East issue. It affects Swindon, which I represent, and indeed the Western Gateway. And I stand here in my capacity as chair of the All-Party Parliamentary Group on the Western Gateway, which links Wales and the West. And we fully support his efforts and indeed the work of the Thames Valley Chamber. So he's to be commended on this, and he has my full support.
I do thank my right honourable friend, and indeed his membership of our all-party parliamentary group has given it strength, and I think it just illustrates how these benefits will not only have a significant impact in the immediate Thames Valley region, which is of course of benefit to me, but also Wales, the South West, Midlands and the wider South East. And I also give way to my honourable friend from Bristol.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way, and he hasn't yet mentioned the benefits it would bring to Bristol, but I very much hope that it will make it easier for people to make that journey. And I think when you look at the environmental impact of Heathrow in terms of the local environment, the surface transport has a big role to play in terms of contributing to air pollution and so on. So if we can dissuade people from using their cars from the West Country to drive to Heathrow because there's an easier train link, I think that would be very advantageous.
I thank my honourable friend from Bristol, and indeed she hits the nail on the head, because this has huge significant benefits environmentally, and I know that she has done a great deal of work on this and the need to reduce our carbon footprint, but also to get our constituents to access our main port via public transport rather than via their car. Yes, I will give way to my honourable friend, the member for Kingswood.
Thank you very much to my honourable friends. And to add my support, Kingswood constituency doesn't have a train station, but Bristol stations, Bristol Parkway, Bristol Temple, Meads would be well served from a Western Rail link. Speak to constituents, they tell me that they're getting taxis up to Heathrow in some cases, but would the member also acknowledge it opens up more areas for employment? It's a big employer, and helping more people get into Heathrow as well.
I thank my honourable friend, the member for Kingswood, and indeed he has been a strong champion for his constituency since being elected. Indeed, I had the distinct pleasure of conversing with many of his constituents while I was out in his area, and as we were discussing earlier, the benefits for the constituents within Kingswood, although they do not have a train station, I know that the benefits would be that rather than individuals from as far away as Kingswood getting a taxi, it is a lot more beneficial if we can provide those direct rail links, because that would reduce journey times, but it would also, as he pointed out, have a huge economic benefit for the wider region. So I thank him for his support. I can, Mr Deputy Speaker, but give way to my honourable friend, the co-chair of our all-party parliamentary group, the member from Bracknell.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. As the Vice Chair of the Western Rail Link all-party group, could I commend my neighbour and friend from Slough for all the work that he's doing with his all-party group to make this happen. This is about jobs, this is about economic growth, this is about boosting travel opportunities across the UK, boosting Heathrow Airport. And does he agree with me that it's almost perverse in the year 2024 that passengers coming from the west of England and Wales cannot travel directly to our major international air hub? And does he also agree with me that this will bring huge benefit to London itself?
I do thank my honourable friend, and indeed he undersells himself, Mr Deputy Speaker. He was the Vice Chair of our all-party parliamentary group, but recently he has been elevated to co-chair, taking on the role from my honourable friend, the member for Newbury, who herself was elevated to the front benches on the opposite sides. But I think he also highlights that it will not just benefit people in the southeast or the west or Wales or the southwest, but it would also benefit people within London, because it would decongest roads, and it would also decongest London Paddington, as I will be explaining in a very, very short while. But I also give way to my honourable friend and my neighbour from Windsor.
Deputy Speaker, we're in danger of having a love-in here. And, and I'm not going to disabuse the House of that notion, because across the House, whether it's from the Conservative benches or the opposition benches, I think there is agreement on this. And in my constituents would join this love-in were the South Western Rail Link to go ahead, because it would remove congestion from the roads of Windsor as far afield as Ascot, and even to my honourable friend's constituency of Bracknell. So I think this is a really good move, and it's a really good issue on which I think this House can unite, because it's something which will help all of our constituents, help the environment, and most of all, unclog Windsor.
I do thank my honourable friend and neighbour from Windsor, and I hope that the Minister is hearing that unanimity of support, or the love-in, as my honourable friend and neighbour has pointed out. But it is important to decongest our roads. People within Windsor, and indeed in Slough, they all get in their car to go to Heathrow. That's what happens predominantly, or they get a taxi. It is important, therefore, that we provide this 4-mile rail link. And indeed, for my constituency of Slough, which is a huge business hub, Mr Deputy Speaker, home to more UK corporate headquarters than anywhere else outside of London. And for those key industry leaders, this vital 4-mile rail link remains the #1 infrastructure priority. In fact, it's the #1 infrastructure priority for the whole of the Thames Valley region. And as a nationally significant infrastructure project, as identified by the NIC, the National Infrastructure Commission, the scheme promises to decrease train travel times, offer a consistent service of trains in each direction, vastly improve connections from across the Great Western Rail network, and bring destinations to within the golden hour for foreign direct investors. The Western Rail Link to Heathrow, Mr Deputy Speaker, would provide 4 trains per hour to the Great Western Main Line, significantly enhancing accessibility for millions from Swansea to Swindon, Cardiff to Exeter, and Reading to Bristol, offering direct links to Heathrow and shedding half an hour off many of those journey times. Delivery of the Western Rail Link scheme holds the key to overcoming barriers to growth that currently face the region, driving investment and unlocking huge economic benefits. According to analysis from Heathrow Airport, Mr Deputy Speaker, the Western Rail Link to Heathrow is projected to add £800 million to the GVA, the gross value added, create 42,000 new jobs, and facilitate an estimated 20% shift from road to rail, as many of my honourable friends have highlighted already. Additionally, it promises £1.5 billion in efficiency savings to businesses through reduced travel times and costs. Such was the excitement, Mr Deputy Speaker, in Wales in 2012, when Conservative ministers announced that they would be building the 4-mile Western Rail Link to Heathrow to open in 2020, that the then First Minister, Rhodri Morgan, described it as, and I quote, one of the most important announcements in the last 50 years. But it was merely yet another broken promise. Previously, the government invested £47 million into planning Western Rail before the pandemic, and after having committed to it more than a decade ago, it is about time that the government, for the benefit of the local, regional and national economy, build the Western Rail Link to Heathrow. And I want to outline environmental benefits, which my honourable friends, the members from Bath and Bristol, touched upon. The extensive benefits of this pivotal rail initiative extend beyond stimulating growth, inward investment and connectivity. It will also play a crucial part in our carbon reduction efforts. The Western Rail Link to Heathrow is a carbon reduction project which will take cars off roads, reduce carbon emissions and diminish passenger overcrowding at London Paddington. The increased rail options for commuters in the Thames Valley region would significantly reduce congestion on some of the UK's busiest roads, including the M4, the M3 and the M25. This would result in lower CO2 emissions equivalent, Mr Deputy Speaker, to approximately 30 million road miles per year. By helping to shift journeys from private cars onto public transport, the Western Rail Link initiative will underpin our transition to net zero, helping to deliver the UK's climate change and carbon reduction targets, as well as being a key support to levelling up in the region. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the proven business case for this project is predicated on a 2-runway scenario. If a third runway was to be built, this scheme would become critical in terms of surface access to the airport. The Western Rail Link to Heathrow is a scheme of considerable importance to right honourable members and constituents, as we have already seen through the invaluable contributions in today's debate, in various regions of the UK. Indeed, there have been several apologies from today's debate from honourable members, including my honourable friend, the member for Feltham and Heston, a former treasurer of our APPG, and our former vice chair of the APPG, my honourable friend, the member from Brentford and Isleworth, who have also expressed their support. Indeed, but as we enter the 12th year, Mr. Deputy Speaker, since the government first committed to building this vital 4-mile rail link, disappointingly, not a single spade has yet been dug into the ground. Despite the government's failure to deliver on its promise, there remains robust cross-party support in Parliament, as well as from business and business chambers from across the UK. The all-party parliamentary group for the Western Rail Link to Heathrow is a strong advocate for the economic merits of this critical infrastructure and its importance in enhancing connectivity for residents to the UK's main airport via rail. It is in the interests of all honourable members, Mr. Deputy Speaker, to deliver tangible results for our constituents. And as MPs representing diverse constituencies, we are all acutely aware of the considerable advantages our constituents stand to gain from this project. I can commend the leadership of the Thames Valley Chamber of Commerce, who in partnership with key stakeholders, including our APPG, and without any public subsidy, are co-developing solutions and sustaining their efforts to ensure that this project remains at the forefront of all minds. This private sector commitment, Mr. Deputy Speaker, should speak volumes to us all in this esteemed House that it is the private sector that has and continues to subsidise the Department for Transport's work. It should be a wake-up call to the government that this is a rail project that simply needs to be funded and built. There was a significant financial commitment from Heathrow Airport prior to the pandemic, but the government's lethargic approach over years has squandered that vital investment opportunity, and we all came back to square one. Beyond hollow words of support over several years that ministers have failed to take tangible action on, the government must finally step up and make the financial commitments that will ensure the timely delivery of their promised Western Rail Link to Heathrow scheme. Just a few months ago, the Transport Minister himself assured me in the Chamber, and I quote, that the government remain committed to improving rail access to Heathrow, claiming to recognise the importance of the Western Rail Link. I also want to convey gratitude to my honourable friend the Minister for taking out his invaluable time recently to meet members of our APPG. But the fact remains, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that in the 12 years since the government first pledged to fund this vital piece of infrastructure, shockingly, not a single spade, as I said, has hit the ground. In conclusion, Mr. Deputy Speaker, yes, I will give way to my honourable friend.
Thank you very much. Does the member for Slough agree with me that with such a strong cross-party consensus across the House, and with colleagues that I've spoken to from Wales and the western part of England, the Midlands, all as one, and it's great when the House comes together, all as one in wanting this project to happen? Does he share my aspiration that the Minister will outline from the dispatch box in a minute what those preconditions will be in order for the government to take that bold step in underwriting the project?
Very, very eloquently put by my honourable friend, the member for Bracknell, and that is what we are hoping for from the Minister. The Minister, I know, is a good chap. I know he is a great champion of rail, but unfortunately, all we have been facing is an impasse for several years. I've been a member of this esteemed House for the last 7 years. There have been lots of promises. Indeed, my first ever Prime Minister's question to my neighbour, the Right Honourable Member for Maidenhead, was on this very issue. There have been many promises, but as yet we are to see a timeline, and I do hope that we will be seeing that and hearing that from the Minister. Indeed, that's what the business community also is expecting. In conclusion, Mr Deputy Speaker, the importance of building the Western Rail Link to Heathrow cannot be overstated, opening up significant opportunities for growth and for enhancing the travel experience and connectivity to Heathrow. The scheme will bring evidenced returns on investment to the Exchequer, help boost the UK's productivity and improve economic stability. After 14 years of consecutive Conservative governments and the plethora of broken promises and economic failures along the way, we need, my Slough constituents need, this vital stimulus more than ever. 12 years after the government first committed to fund and build this Western Rail Link, we are unfortunately no closer to the goal. So, Minister, when will the government stop obfuscating and provide the people of my Slough constituency, the wider Thames Valley region and beyond, with a clear timeline as to when we can expect this project to finally be set into action? We have already had various consultations over the years. We've run through the various rigmarole, and it seemed as if we were getting to the promised land, but we are still very, very far away from that. And the Western Rail Link initiative is about more than just improving, Mr Deputy Speaker, journey times. It signifies the strengthening of UK-wide and global links. It strengthens our union, a firm government commitment to levelling up, significant steps towards reducing carbon emissions, and the unlocking of immense potential. Thank you very much, Mr Deputy Speaker.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. I would like to begin by congratulating the Honourable Member for Slough for securing this debate, or cross-party love-in, as he put it, albeit with a few digs into my heart, for a Western Rail Link to Heathrow. I know that he has been a strong supporter of this scheme for some time now, particularly as he references in his capacity as chair of the Western Rail Link to Heathrow all-party parliamentary group, and that the scheme is of great importance to him and his constituents, and indeed, as has been demonstrated by the honourable members who have intervened, to them and their constituents as well. If I can turn first of all to Heathrow Airport, which has a key role to play in boosting our global connectivity and the UK economy. It was ranked as the second busiest airport in the world for international passengers in 2023, handling an estimated total of 79 million passengers travelling to 214 destinations across 84 countries on 89 airlines. In 2024, this number is expected to increase to 82.4 million passengers. The government remains supportive of airport expansion where it can be delivered within our environmental obligations. However, we have always been clear that Heathrow expansion remains a private sector project which must meet strict criteria on air quality, noise and climate change, as well as being privately financed, affordable and delivering in the best interests of consumers. The government also recognises the economic benefit which airports can have within their local area. Increasingly, airports are becoming regional transport hubs which support multiple businesses, labour markets and population centres. Reliable and efficient surface access connections are an important part of achieving this, and the government is committed to improving access to Heathrow Airport in ways that work for passengers and address decarbonisation objectives. For example, the Honourable Member for Slough will be aware that the Elizabeth Line services are now operating from Reading through Maidenhead onto Paddington and through central London to the City, Canary Wharf, Shenfield and Abbey Wood further in the east. Passengers from the west on the Elizabeth line can change at Hayes and Harlington for services to Heathrow Airport, and in a few years' time, passengers will be able to connect to the airport once the new Old Oak Common HS2 interchange station is built and becomes operational. That will become the largest new station we will have built. This will enable even faster journey times and more connections than ever. These improvements are on top of the existing Piccadilly line and Heathrow Express services, connecting the airport with London's public transport network, enabling journeys from across the country. Although, Mr Deputy Speaker, I have so far talked about connections for passengers, I appreciate that this is also important as an issue to local stakeholders, including those in the Honourable Member's constituency of Slough. It's not only an issue for passengers, but also for the many thousands of people who work in and around Heathrow or provide services to the airport, and many of those will be in the constituencies of those who've spoken this afternoon. The airport provides direct employment to 76,000 people. It is important that the transport network can get those people to work, as well as the millions of air passengers away to their destinations. Let me now turn, Mr Deputy Speaker, to the Western Rail Link to Heathrow scheme itself and the question of government support. The Government have always recognised the potential benefits the proposals could bring, as the Honourable Member has mentioned. To recap, the Western Rail Link scheme is proposed as a 4-mile link between the Great Western Main Line and Heathrow Airport, promoted by local authorities and business groups in the area. It is important to note that the Government's position has always been that any funding would be subject to the agreement of a significant third-party financial contribution. The previous position pre-pandemic was that only 50% of the cost would be funded by government. Moreover, the scheme complemented the planned construction of a new third runway and the expansion of Heathrow, forming part of the proposals to deliver better surface access and addressing the environmental impacts of a busier airport, which of course would be the busier airport if the third runway had been built. However, Heathrow Airport Limited is now not actively pursuing expansion, given its current focus on recovery following the impacts of the pandemic on the aviation sector. This has had an impact, of course, on the financial contribution from the private sector. The current position, as I understand it, is that the promoters, primarily the Thames Valley Chamber of Commerce, are keen to revive the scheme as a majority privately funded proposal. Officials continue to work with stakeholders to support them in updating the business case for the scheme. This work is focused on updating the designs for the scheme, refreshing the cost estimates to take account of inflationary pressures over the last few years, and understanding whether there is a demand given the recent changes in travel patterns following the pandemic and the current economic context. I expect to receive an update on this work later in the year. The Government remains committed to investing in rail, as demonstrated by the Prime Minister's Network North announcement, which detailed an unprecedented number of commitments. We are taking forward affordable yet transformative growth plans to increase connectivity and capacity on the railway, and have spent £2 billion a year upgrading the railway across England and Wales, including reopening previously closed sections of the network. And I'll just remind the Honourable Member for Slough, given his points about rail investment, that since 2010, over £100 billion of investment has been put forward by this Government, by the taxpayer, on rail, and I'm very proud of that. As a rail minister, of course, I would indeed support that. Because the significant changes to travel patterns after the pandemic and the challenging fiscal environment rightly require consideration of the rail infrastructure investment as a portfolio. Just to run our rail over the last few years, Mr Deputy Speaker, has cost every single household in this country £1,500 each. So therefore it's absolutely right for them as a taxpayer that we ensure all schemes are affordable for them, the taxpayer. The prioritisation of schemes and allocation of funds within it in terms of the portfolio is managed and updated on an ongoing basis. So I want to thank the Honourable Member once more for the debate. Heathrow Airport is an important international travel hub for the country, one of the busiest airports in the world, as I've said, and that is why this Government recognises its requirements for good surface access connections. I'll of course give way to the Honourable Member.
I do thank the Minister for his response, but within that he has referred to later in the year. We don't seem to have a timeline and that urgency to deal with it. In effect, his predecessors prior to the pandemic Also, as I explained, because of that lethargic approach, we had a significant contribution from the private sector that was not realised. We then had the pandemic, it went back to square one. But now, can the Minister actually outline a timeline more precise than just later in the year?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Look, I think it's important to recognise what has occurred over the last few years. So firstly, we've had the pandemic, which means that rail finances are now at 80% of where they were pre-pandemic. So there's an awful lot of money that is being funded. And when we talk about delivering new railway, we also have to take into account how to fund the existing railway. The other matters have changed, and as a member of the Transport Select Committee, I was heavily involved in the scrutiny of Heathrow. The decision of this House was that it could proceed to third runway. But of course, with the pandemic, that decision moved. And of course, a lot of the benefits of this scheme, and he details them, they are wide, and I support those benefits. But a lot of them also go towards the mitigation that a third runway would need. And obviously, with the third runway now looking as if it wouldn't go ahead, it makes that business case for the scheme that bit harder. But let me just reassure him, and I was going to end to this point as well, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that I hope that the case and the funding from the private sector can be made, and we can give the Honourable Member for Slough and all other members who've spoken in here, who are championing this project, positive news. So I'll end by giving him another commitment. If he and the members of the All-Party Parliamentary Group, and indeed the Thames Chamber, want to come and meet with me, we can set out a timeline for that decision, what needs to be done. I can then set out what actually is required from a private sector financing perspective, because I need to know that that money can be there if we are to do the work within government. So let's all work together, let's sit down, have that meeting. I'll be open and transparent with him and the members, as I always am, and we can work out if we can get this project delivered, because it has great merit to it. And of course, I would like to see projects like this where the private sector and the taxpayer works together for the betterment of the whole country succeed. Thank you.
The question is that this House do now adjourn. As may let me say aye. Actually, no, I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Order. Order.